Okay, perfect. Really, it's wonderful to see you, sir. Alright, I'm going to have my notes up here on the side. If anyone needs to put their hand up, please go ahead and do so. If there are any questions in the Fireside Q&A, I'll go ahead and alt-tab as is necessary. Alright, let's go ahead and start this Fireside, shall we? So, I want to touch real quick on the current wars we've had against both Black Flag, SRS, Rising Fang. To some of the individuals who are new, I'll just go over them super briefly, and we'll move on to the more important topic at hand. So, we started the Rising Fang War because we saw that our enemy's Fortizar was engaged with in Hull, thanks to one of our new incoming friends. That some people like, some people don't like. He's like Marmite, but if there's any problems, I will deal with it, as I always do. We went ahead and engaged that Fortizar, and I'd like to say that it was successful regardless of the outcome of the drop for the Fortizar, which we intended to be 50 billion. It was that amount when we had scanned it prior, when the war deck, before the war deck was declared. It was T2 is fully fit, rigged and everything, so it would have been a very, very hefty drop. But unfortunately, they decided to be cowards and pull everything as soon as they saw any form of force coming their way. So unfortunately, the total kill for the Fortizar by estimate current market status was about 15 billion rounded, which is unfortunate, but 15 billion ISK kill is still a 15 billion ISK kill, so I'm very happy with that regardless. Now, the situation that we have with Black Flag and the Rising Fang war deck that is still proceeding as of current has been sorted out. So we have a new corporation that's joined the coalition at the moment, known as Blorf shortly, which is Boom Boom Ships. They've recently joined onto us. Unfortunately, they were the war eligible side because they left their thing open, but that's fine. We've gone ahead and removed them. We'll be bringing them back in, but that's a different topic, as is for later. So the war cooldown will finish around, I believe, an hour after downtime tomorrow. So by that time, everybody should be fine. We'll be going back to ineligibility, which is fantastic. Someone give Mounts a pacifier. I don't know if you said the Indie was first or not, Mounts, but we're having this one. Okay. That will be about it for the current wars that we have going on at the moment. Now, I want to talk a little bit about future PvP and the doctrines that we have as of current. Everyone has been getting into doctrines really, really nicely, and that's fantastic. We've been getting into the T1s and the T2s quite nicely. A lot of you guys are able to fly the T2s, which is ace. So what I've been discussing briefly with some of our FCs is expanding the lineup of the current doctrines that we have. So that doesn't necessarily mean adding T2 ships or T2 hulls, for example, because I believe that's still a ways off as of current. What I am going to be doing though is increasing the lineup, and this basically means that if we have for the Dragon Scales doctrine, Hurricanes and Augurs, for example, we'll be increasing that to having different variations of the Hurricane and adding a bit more versatility specifically to that doctrine. So fleshing it out a little bit more, structuring it, making sure there's more logistics options available, more e-wear options available for different people who have different racial constructs. And this will allow for a bit more diversity in fleet compositions and ease individuals who are focusing on specific doctrine trees to be able to get into and line themselves up, so it's a lot more linear going forward. Any questions in regards to that side when it comes to the doctrine lineup as of current? Feel free to raise your hand, guys, or put in a question in the Fireside Q&A channel. If you don't know how to raise your hand, you should have an option on the screen somewhere. Otherwise, I'm going to assume that nobody has any questions. Okay, perfect. Yolad, you're first. Coming up.
I'm just wondering, as part of expanding the doctrines, will that include adding any more tier 1 ships?
Yeah, That's right, yeah. We'll have options for T1 ships as well. When I talk about expansion, it's going to be across the board. So T1s and T2s will be expanded upon. All of them.
Okay, sounds good.
Fantastic. Ariana, you had a question coming up.
Yeah, basically just touch up on that for others who didn't understand. For the doctrines, you're just going to increase basically the variations of the doctrines that we already have, kind of building on those, let's say the DS doctrines and the War Dog doctrines, for example. Basically to also help progress those pilots that are already training in that tree to kind of help them progress even further. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. Kiwi, you had a question as well. Come on up, Kiwi. No? You should be able to. You should see that you've been invited, Kiwi. Do you see it? If not, you can just type out your question on the Fireside Q&A.
Have you added the augurs to the doctrine?
Yeah, the Augurs are already part of the doctrine. They haven't been included in Seat as of yet because there's been a technical issue on Seat's side, which is messing up the name, so we need to get that sorted out at the moment. Once that's done, then you'll see all the doctrines over there. Relance and I will go ahead and take care of that when we're able to do so, but give us a couple of days to go through that because there's a little bit of a mess behind the scenes.
What about the cormorants? Have you got cormorant snipers?
No, cormorants at the moment, that's new. So the cormorant doctrine will be added. It's more of a sort of a joke that I was running with some of the guys when they wanted to have like a bird crow doctrine. But I do have something lined up for that. I have been thinking on it quite well. There's a lot of options that we can play with, especially with the new introduction of Navy destroyers. So I'm going to see if we can line those up and get them into the doctrines if it's not too overly expensive for a lot of the new players. If we're able to integrate that, go ahead.
I've got a fit that I use
For
for
cormorants?
spectres. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's straightforward. You just
I wouldn't mind. Sure. If you want to show that to me after the fireside, I'll take a look and we'll see how it matches up because I have a cormorant doctrine as well. Is yours blaster or is it long range?
long range.
Long range. Okay. All right. We'll compare the
If
two
you
and
got 10 of them, man. If you got 10 of them and you walk to somebody like range 80, you fuck them up on shot.
No. Yeah, it's definitely a good one to have on the field. Right. I see one more person question. Ariana, if you wouldn't mind moving down, Kiwi, you should be able to move down as well. Oh. Okay. Yola, do you had one more question coming up?
Yeah, I have a bunch of skill points up and ready. Is there like a specific like tier 2-ish doctrine that you recommend me using the skill points for that like is used a lot in fleets?
Yeah, so that would be the Caracals from the Wild Dogs doctrine. We use those quite a lot. Sometimes the boys like to take the canes out on fleet operations and PvP, so those two would be good to get into.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Right. Now, what I wanted to... Hello. Maybe type up a sequential list of fits to train for. Yeah, I will be certain to do that, Morales. Appreciate that. I'll put that on my notes. Okay. So, I also wanted to touch up a little bit on the future of industry and our eligibility for war as well. As we've been getting bigger, our fleet sizes have been increasing from about 15 to 20, and now we're touching on the 30 mark, which is fantastic. So I want to just remind everybody that we're going to stay ineligible for a little bit of time until we're able to increase our fleet sizes to about 60 or so, and then we're going to go about between 60 and 90, depending on how comfortable I feel in terms of activity. Once there's a proper gauge for that sort of availability and activity from everyone, then we'll be going ahead and increasing that and then putting down structures as necessary, because the enemies are always watching, as we've rightfully seen with the war decks that come in consistently the moment we go eligible. So we just want to make sure that we're keeping an eye on those sorts of things. I have a couple of questions coming in here. Snail, what skill plan should someone who is 100% new to PvP train? Yeah, Morales has got a great answer for you there. He has a bunch of listings that he's able to put up. You should take a look at those. If you don't know where to go and that sort of stuff, he's very happy to keep you on board with new skill plans and those sorts of things. They're all tied up to the current doctrines that we have, which is Ace. And if he doesn't have them, Relance has them, and if he doesn't have them, then I have them. There's a lot of variability, so just ask around for people, and they have the skill plans available for you. Michaela, I see you have a question. I'm inviting you up. Go ahead. Michaela? Okay. I'm just gonna move you down, or you can just type a question. We'll wait a moment to see if Michaela types the question. No? Okay. Right. Then I will continue. Michaela, if you get your thing sorted, we can't go ahead and come back. Oh. You got your working again? Okay, fantastic. Okay, let's see what you have to say. So moving on, continuing with the industrial side and sector, once we're able to get a certain amount of consistent activity, we'll start putting down structures both for industry and as a main home market hub. This will be Fortizar, Moonpops or Athanors or Tataras. We'll figure out which one we want to be able to utilize. And then as we continue forward with those, we'll have the capability to be able to defend them appropriately with Nadas and the rest of our doctrines. As we expand in size, we'll also be increasing the size of our doctrines. We'll transition. This is in the future months, in the next 2-3 months, I'm assuming here. We'll transition from getting everybody into T1 doctrines and start getting you guys into the T2 hulls, which is going to be a lot more expensive. But by that time, and a lot more skill planning when it comes into that sort of stuff. But within 3 months, as everybody has been training a lot of those doctrines already, you should be able to get into the T2 variations. Now, this isn't expected of everybody. It's more a case of if you're able to get into them, fantastic. But for a lot of the newer guys here, like Yolad, as well as Snail, who've just recently joined and have no PvP experience and very little skills, you guys will be training up the current T1s and then progressing naturally till you're able to get into the T2 variants. So don't assume that you need to get into it. Please don't spend IRL money to skill inject unless you have more money to spare. But that's a you thing. I'm not going to ask anybody to do that. Please don't panic. In regards to the current industry and our ability to put down structures once we are capable for different things, are there any questions on that side before I move on to the next topic? Michaela. Regarding fleets, I think before war eligibility we should transition fleets to people in the same place doing the same thing. So we currently have security on hand for mining or what have you. Having numbers in fleet is good, but if most people are 15 plus jumps away and a small portion of the fleet is doing a thing, is kind of useless, if that makes sense. So to more appropriately word your question, are you talking about having individuals working more closely together in regards of specific fleet operations? So if somebody goes out for a moon pop, you want people to be focused on that sort of objective as opposed to anything else. Yeah. Okay. I see where you're getting from, but it's the problem with answering that fairly is that at the moment with the coalition, we're on the smaller side. So having people focus on one sort of thing, we're able to do that. That's not a problem. But we also need to remember the fact that as we get bigger, yeah, no, that's different. If as we get larger, that'll be a lot easier for us to do because there'll be more people to pull from, more bodies to pull from, different time zones, so on and so forth. More people than transitional. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, they will be doing that. We do that anyway at the moment. Like, it's not as frequent as it could be, but that's more to do with time zones, as we have people who are on from 0900 to 1500, and then people who are on from 2100 to 0300 and 03 to 09, and our time zones are kind of messy. There just isn't. There's unfortunately not enough people to fill all those time zones. Yeah, that's cool. Anro, will we ever include T3 destroyers or strategic cruisers in doctrines? That is a very good question. Yes, I would love to include those, but we also need to understand the threshold of which the coalition is skill-wise as of current. So when you're creating doctrines specifically for a corporation or an alliance, or in this case a coalition, you want to try and have a median for the entity that you're creating it for. And that median is, where do you see the most people's skills at an individual basis, right? And if you're able to ascertain that, then you can present a doctrine to it, in which case at the moment we're at T1, T2. A lot of people are in T2, a lot of people are in T1, and they're still training up a lot of the T1, they're still training up a lot of the T2. So once I can transition everybody to get into the T2 doctrine specifically, then we can start considering pushing them into T2 hulls or potentially T3 hulls and specializing them for different operations, teaching them how to utilize T3Ds, which is T3 destroyers, or T3Cs, so strategic cruisers, as you rightfully said. That would be very nice, but we also need to take into account things like production costs, material costs. If it's easier to just buy them off of the market than it is to produce them in-house. And there's a whole bunch of other questions that need to be answered, as well as production line facilities and so on and so forth. I hope that answers your question. Yo lad, where do I get access to the caracal fitting? You will have access to them in Seat. Unfortunately, that is a bit of a technical issue as of the moment. Once that's up and going, you should be able to go into Seat, and you should see a drop down that says fittings and be able to access the fittings tab there, and you'll have a list of doctrines that you can go ahead and pull. There's a whole bunch up there at the moment. We're just going to get that side sorted. Once that's done, I'll put up a post and let everybody know about it, and you'll be free to go ahead and grab them as and when you wish. Alright. Move on to the next topic. So, growth and recruitment. In this case, I've been seeing that there's been a bump in recruitment as well as growth, generally speaking, across the board. So that's talking about SAND specifically, as well as RD13 and Syndicate in general, which has been growing quite nicely, which I think is good. I'm very proud that there's been more and more people coming on board, and that general activity is looking good. So I'm quite happy with that. Just keep up that sort of push as you've been doing. Continue posting the recruitments. Post our propaganda video that we've made, and push that out. Get more people excited. Have more individuals start coming into the coalition, because the more individuals we have coming in, the more activity, and everything from there is just exponential. It's just a continued reaction. Any questions in regards to growth and recruitment? No? Okay. So, what I want to talk a little bit about is reactions and interactions. Now, this one's been a consistent thing with myself. So, the reason I try to ensure that everybody is reacting to pings and different messages and so on and so forth in the server is to gauge activity. If I know you guys are here, I know you guys are here in the Fireside channel at the moment because I can see you. But when I put up a message, or if Freelance puts up a message, or anybody else, any fleet commander and so on and so forth, I apologize for the background noise. 1 second. Okay. So if anybody puts up a specific message within the server, if there's no real reactions or there's very little reactions coming up to it, our assumption is that either the time zone is incorrect or we're just unable to get the proper reactions and interactions as is necessary. So when you do see these sorts of announcements or pings come up, please make sure you do react to them. What it shows is that you're there and you have seen the ping. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be there, it just means that you've seen it, right? And it's important that you showcase that sort of thing so that there's more encouragement to the individuals who are doing the posting, like the fleet commanders and your indie dudes who are posting for mining operations and so on and so forth. Interact, react, and just talk. It's not that one post is very easy to go ahead and do. Any questions in that side before I move on to the next piece, our final topic? No? Okay. So, the final thing I need to go over is we have an actual enemy. This isn't SRS. This is not Black Flag or anything like that. This is actually one of the guys who were with us previously. And the reason I'm declaring them an enemy of Megiddo is it's a bit complex. So I'll start from the beginning of the relationship and tie it up. So this is going to be the larger part of the fireside here. So we started by bringing in Strange Alliance. Relance and I had gone and we'd had a meeting, we'd sat with them as we do with every other alliance or corporation, spoken with them, brought them on board, given the documentation, and so on and so forth. Once that side of stuff had concluded, they had said their yays or nays and different types of topics coming forward. And they were more than happy to come on board the coalition with all of the stuff that we had listed. The only exception was that they didn't want to move from the area that they were in. And I said that was fine, considering the amount of structures that they had up. They told us they had about 50 plus structures. That, as we've gone and done the research on them, because we took them by their word, we've then found out that, correct me if I'm wrong here, it was Relance, it was below 20 structures, if I remember correctly.
11.
11, right. And so that was the research we done after they had left, because I'd left on pretty nasty terms. So the other thing was that they had agreed to all the terms like Discord, see the doctrines, coming over for operations, and so on and so forth, the usual stuff. They came over with just their leadership and didn't really start inviting line members. They'd put up a post, but then hadn't really encouraged the line members to come on. So as I do with all the CEOs here, encourage your guys to come into the Discord, be interactive so that they can see the operation stuff going on. They can go make money in the wormholes with Morales or Aggro Bears, and they can go out on fleets or factional warfare. They can get involved with all sorts of content that's available to them. Strange didn't want to go ahead and do that. I didn't understand why at the time, but I do as of current. So to put that on the back burner for just a moment and go forward to the main part of this enemy sort of thing. So when I had spoken to who I believe is their PvP lead, Sith Sunmaster, we had originally cooked up what I had assumed was a gift. He had told me that he was more than willing to create a certain amount of doctrines for the coalition to utilize for the war, which would be against SRS, Mercenary Cluster, and GSC. They're all the high-sec pirates and low-sec pirates, in essence, if you don't understand what I'm saying. They were the individuals who were going to go ahead and push ourselves against eventually once we reached about 90 plus people in fleet. We're about 30 people in fleet, so we're a third of the way there. That's what the original plan was. And these doctrines were going to help us a long way. Now, the value of these doctrines in total to be given to us as a gift was around about the region of 100 billion ISK. Now, this is a very large sum of ISK for those of you who aren't relatively well off in EVE, and those of you who are, it's still going to get quite a large amount. I had thought of it weird as well, but I'd confirmed with the individual, which is Sith, that it was indeed a gift. I'd spoken with Rulance about this afterwards, and he had also said, it's a bit weird, but if he's confirmed it, then fair enough. So we then waited about, I believe, a week. And then he decided to reach out to Relance and I. Excuse me, I think we waited about 2 weeks. And then he reached out to myself, and I then told Relance afterwards that he's gone ahead and decided to say that we need to pay for the doctrines. Now, normally this wouldn't be a problem. So when I ask the industry lead here, Dorma, to create doctrines, she gets paid for it. If I don't have an issue with that sort of stuff. But I told Sith and Strange in the beginning that you've asked me to, to give you the doctrine listings, ask which ones I want created, and you were going to give this as a gift. And the reason they were going to give it for free is because they wanted to utilize our low-sec moons and the ice to recoup, this is in their words, to recoup any potential losses they may have incurred. And I told them that was fine, that's not a problem. You're more than welcome to go and do so. Everybody utilizes the moon pops for their own gains as well. The only exception is when it's during specific coalition operations. And that's a whole different topic. So I said to them, that's fine, that's not an issue. They then went ahead and had proclaimed that nothing of the sorts had happened, and that I was effectively lying about the entire situation, which wasn't the case. Yeah, Morales, this will be recorded. You're free to leave if you have stuff to do. That's fine. And that wasn't true, because I have the screenshot which I'd posted up into Coalition chat in Discord, which showcases that I had thanked Sith for the gift. Excuse me. And he had said it's not a problem, he stands by his word and that sort of jazz, and he was more than happy and willing to give. When I had gotten him and Glitch and another guy called Unextender, I don't know why he was there, into a private conversation away from everybody, and it was just us in direct messages, and we'd had a voice call about this. They then proceeded, Sith specifically then proceeded to kick off, was unscrupulous, and was generally just swearing and being abusive in comms. To which my rebuttal to him was, look man, if I'm being respectful to you, you don't need to be disrespectful to me. If there's a situation that we can solve here, if there's a way we're able to go about this, then we can go ahead and sort it here. That ended up being not the case, and it just ended, unceremoniously. Then they ended up leaving. Now, this was the lead to where we were getting to them becoming an enemy. The second part that made it more so kind of an entrapment case, where we need to go do a rescue operation for the individuals who are over in Strange, is we've gotten first-hand testimonies and evidence from the members who have come over from them, stating of how they're treating the members, and it's not good. It's not in the case of that they're just like downright abusive or anything like that. It's that they treat them in a way where it's effectively slavery. They're not allowed to go towards orcas unless they get taxed for it. They're not able to go and go to different operations with other members unless they get taxed for it. And they're just generally not able to do anything that's not specific to the way that their alliance tells them to do and the way that they're able to do it. So you don't get the sorts of freedom that you get here, per se. Like, everyone's able to go out and do whatever they want, and there's no issues with it, really. So this is where Relance and I decided that this sort of thing shouldn't exist in EVE, because this is a direct violation of the Nubro Code, which is an unwritten sort of thing, but it's agreed upon with every veteran sort of player that you do not, under any circumstances, go and fuck around with new bros to effectively put it into a light sentence. You just don't do that. New bros are the lifeblood of the game, and it's what keeps things going. It's what keeps things fresh. So, by this declaration to finalize this, that is the reason why they're going to become an enemy. So, this is going to be taken forward appropriately, and they will be dealing with them as is necessary. And this is going to mean a full-scale war against Strange because of these reasons. Now, some people here were previously from Strange, so you can go ahead and ask them anything you want after the fireside, but please be respectful about any situations that are brought up. You know, some people may have different views, some people may have other things to say, that's fine. But this is the viewpoint of the coalition and how we're going to go ahead and proceed with these events moving forward. Are there any questions thus far before I conclude the fireside?
I want to add something.
Go ahead.
The exploitive nature of Strange's operations with high-sec moon mining aside, they're also farming like players after they reach a certain skill point level down to nullsec blocks, which is basically trafficking players into indentured servitude down a null block.
Yeah.
You know, this is obviously a video game, and this is, you know, not real human trafficking, but it's scummiest behavior at the scummiest level. And when we found out about it, and I was particularly angry that they had kind of duped us into joining into an agreement with them. While this is the kind of thing that they're doing in the game. So it's important to note that after, you know, new players are left on high moon mining, you know, they hit a certain skill point level, and then it's off to nullsec with you, and they're being paid to send people down there. And new players have been cut, you know, basically ostracized from the rest of the game. They're not allowed to communicate with each other. There's no comms. There's no camaraderie. So they don't necessarily know any better. And they're kind of threatened with, well, you'll be booted out, and then you're on your own, and people are going to attack you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the trafficking part to me is particularly egregious. Sending new players down to nullsec is gross. So we're going to destroy them.
Yeah.
Thanks.
There's a question from Yushin. Come on up, bud. Go ahead.
I had a question. I don't know if it's related to this.
No, go ahead.
But since I'm new, I guess you'd say new to PvP, I don't exactly understand the mechanics or like what I'm supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way we could like get some training or something like that?
Yeah, no,
like, how to do stuff?
Yeah, of course. We're more than happy to put you up. So we have PvP fleet pings consistently. Whenever you see one, come along to it. The more you're able to come along to, the more you're able to get trained, the more experience you'll get. So that will be your training effectively. I will also be holding training events myself as well in the future. So when you see those pinged, come along to those as well.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Yo, lad, you got a question, bud? Coming up.
I absolutely agree that that's like super scummy. Honestly, like sending new players to nullsec, I don't know what I'd be doing if I was in that position.
Right.
The thing about threatening to kick you out, honestly, I probably would leave if I was in that position. Like, it's not worth it.
No, I agree with you.
Absolutely.
And as Relance has said, you know, the trafficking side of things is the more egregious offense. Sending new players off to nullsec. Here's the thing: sending new players off to nullsec isn't a new thing, and it's not necessarily frowned upon. The way that it's done, if you do it properly, where you train a player up for say 3 to 6 months, like hardcore training. They get used to things, they understand how things are able to be done, and so on and so forth. And they go into null and they transition. The transition is smooth. Something like that is different, right? That's fine. We can understand that sort of stuff. But just taking them from their starter corporations, forcing them to mine, which they're doing, and then just throwing them in null and getting a payment for it, that's just like, it's just downright scummy.
It reminds me a lot of mega corporations on planets in Eve. Like a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions before we go ahead and wrap this up? Or anything they'd like to input? Michaela. On the topic of fleets, if there is an operations fleet like the Fortizar one yesterday, get into the habit of muting your mic unless asked to speak by the FC chat champion. Yes, that is something I would also like to bring up as well. I understand everyone's chatty and that sort of stuff, and that's fine. But you need to understand that if there's, myself aside, but if any FC is asking you to clear comms and that sort of stuff, you need to understand that this is for the safety of the fleet. If the fleet has information that it needs to divulge to necessary members, so the logistics anchor, which is the LA, or the 2IC, or the guys who are eyes, intel, and so on and so forth, they are not able to pass that information along because people are too busy talking up comms and shit talking and having a giggle, which is fine if the FC says comms are free and something like that. But when they say clear comms or guys are in battle comms, something like that, just make sure you take it as an understanding that you need to just be quiet because the information needs to flow. This is necessary for your fleet commanders to do what they do, to be able to push the way that they push, and to keep, most importantly, keep you alive and have the most fun at the same time. It is literally a moment where your ship is in the hands of the person who's controlling the fleet. And if you're interrupting that flow by talking, even a couple of words sometimes can be an issue. Just keep it to text. And anybody who is watching the fleet chat, so for example, the fleet yesterday, where I didn't have a 2IC, but Relance was relaying me stuff that's going on in chat, so was Commissar, and that sort of stuff, because these are the individuals who have the experience to back that sort of stuff up, and they know when they should be speaking and when they shouldn't. So if you do want to say something, or you need to say something, try and keep it to text, and we'll get to it as soon as possible. Yes, Snail, highlight is War on Strange. Right, I'll go ahead and be wrapping this up unless anybody has any questions. Kiwi, I see you. Come on up, bud. Kiwi, are you there?
Oh, sorry, man. I forgot to push the button. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine now.
Yeah, so if this war thing happens again where somebody invites a corp to the coalition and we end up in war again, can the person that was at fault send 100 million to all the corp leaders of the coalition?
If it happens next time, we can we'll have to decide on that sort of thing. I think this time it was an honest mistake. That's fine. But anything in the future, we'll be going ahead and checking manually with any corporation we bring in, so that this sort of thing doesn't happen. If it does happen and they do it whilst they're in the alliance, that's a different problem. But yeah, we'll see what we can do with that sort of stuff, and I'll talk with Relance of what we're able to bring up that we feel is fair for individuals that do this sort of stuff in the future, even if by accident or by intentional actions.
So I'll get my wallet ready.
Yeah. Alright, I see a couple things coming in. Doma, I second that. Does that mean Q has to send money out? 150. Oh, it's definitely a possibility. Right. Any other questions from anybody else? No? Alright. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Feel free to go ahead and leave comms as and when you feel like. I'm going to go ahead and put the recording of this up on YouTube. Should be up within the hour. Alrighty, go and get the fuck out of here.